I live in a small suburban town in downtown Chicago. It was the 4th of July, and my girlfriend and I were hosting this small party for a few friends and coworkers of ours. We invited about 15 or so people, and I had grilled a few burgers and hot dogs for dinner, along with side dishes as well. Even though we told people to come at 6, many of them started to come well after, which wasn't a bad thing seeing as the barbecue wasn't ready. For the most part, everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves. Some were talking to me about work-related stuff, while others sort of vibed with each other. Once 8 p.m. had rolled around, the food was done, and I went out to the garage to grab the fireworks we had bought. My girlfriend and I went all out on the 4th of July, so we were basically firework hoarders. I bring out 2 large cases of fireworks where my friend Mike had offered to help me set them off. By now, everyone was in the back patio, sitting down eagerly waiting for the fireworks to go off. We set off a few minis to keep everyone entertained while Mike and I were preparing the bigger ones. At one point, I grabbed the lighter I was using and attempted to set off one of the big ones. However, my lighter was acting up as it didn't light a flame. Being annoyed, I tell everyone to stay put while I go grab another lighter from my room. As I'm heading upstairs, I couldn't help but notice that the light in the bathroom in my room was on. This was weird as I made it clear that I didn't want anyone near my room or anywhere upstairs in general. That's when I began hearing footsteps in the bathroom, and figuring that it was maybe my girlfriend, I say, "Hey babe, you in there?" The footsteps suddenly stopped as I said this, where I was met with dead silence. I knew there had to be someone in there, and I figured I'd just let them do their business and that they'd be out after. Long story short, I grabbed a lighter and we began shooting off fireworks like there was no tomorrow. The whole thing lasted about 20 minutes, and that was around the time where people began leaving and less fireworks went off. One of our coworkers had volunteered to help us clean up as he didn't have anything else to do. Now, let's fast forward to about half an hour later. I'm helping my coworker clean up when he looks up at the window and asks, "Hey, who's that upstairs?" I look up at my bedroom window to see a woman who I'd never seen before staring down at us. She wasn't any one of our friends, and she definitely wasn't my girlfriend. This woman was a lot older and looked as if she were depressed for life. I hysterically yelled out a "what the hell" and run to my girlfriend where we called the police. Thankfully, the nearest police station was only a few blocks down, so I knew it wouldn't be long before an officer arrived. I'd say within a few minutes, 2 police cruisers pulled up where I had told them the room she was in. I prayed they'd be safe, and after what felt like forever, they came back down with this lanky, tired woman in handcuffs. However, she didn't try to fight or resist them. She just kind of accepted her defeat. My girlfriend and I watched as she was put into the backseat of the police car. After that, an officer had come over to us where he had told us something bone-chilling. While him and his field training officer were up in my room, they had opened the bathroom door and found her holding a knife. She was clearly waiting for one of us to open the door and do God knows what. As far as we know, she was sent off to some mental institution with maximum security. Knowing that me, or anyone else very well could have died that night, is horrendous. Being a big guy with a chance of overpowering her, I still wasn't sure what she was capable of. It's been shy of 6 years now, and we've never seen or heard from that woman since. When I was around 12, my family and I went to a very old piece of land to watch fireworks for the 4th of July. We always went there as it was a nice scenery and was an amazing view to watch fireworks. I remember the story briefly, but I'll try to get through as much as possible. It was the evening of 4th of July, and my parents had picked out a good spot on the grass to set up our picnic. I'd say that there were about 300 other people around who were also waiting intensely for the show to begin. Among the chatter of people were the smell of food trucks and the sound of the band performing on stage. It was around 6 p.m., and we had a good hour or so before the fireworks started, so my mom let me and my younger sister go play in the meantime. My sister and I went around the property to go play hide and seek, which was our favorite game at the time. I would be the one seeking, while my sister was the one hiding. Once I counted to 20, I made my way over to several places in the area where I thought she was hiding, but ended up with no luck. About 30 or so minutes go by, and it was at this point where I started to get a little worried. Normally, she'd end up coming out or quit playing. At one point, I was about to call my mom, and that was when I saw her by the bridge where people would enter. She was talking to this guy who had kneeled down to her height. For whatever reason, he's holding her hand and attempting to pull her somewhere. Even being 12, I still knew that something was off, and I knew I had to do something. Suddenly, a firework shot up, lighting the whole sky red, followed by a loud boom. This meant that the show had started and that my parents were probably furious. I hesitated and went up to my sister and said, "Oh, hey sis, there you are. Come on, let's go. Mom and Dad are waiting." I grabbed her by the other hand while giving the man a dirty look as he just stood there while I walked off. He didn't seem fazed by this or upset. He just stood there in shock, as if he were surprised I had managed to do that. That being said, we ended up going back to our spot where we got to see the rest of the show. I never told my parents about what had happened until a few weeks after. I remember my parents scrambling and even calling the venue for security footage to see who it was that might have taken my sister. However, with there being so many people at an outdoor venue, catching the guy was next to impossible. They were of course livid at me for not telling them then, but what matters is that she's safe now. Till this day, I'm still proud of myself for confronting that man, knowing I probably saved my sister from something horrible happening to her. For a little bit of context, this happened on July 4th of 2019. I had just started doing both Uber and Lyft as a side hustle to make some extra money for my boyfriend and I. It wasn't the best paying job, but flexibility was through the roof and you didn't have people telling you what to do. It's a chill and steady job, but you always had to stay on top of what you were doing. Anyway, it was the 4th of July and I decided to do some Ubering as I knew there would be a lot of people out. Every 4th of July, my city hosts this annual music festival where thousands of people attend, so I was guaranteed to get a few people. Almost immediately, I kept getting requests left and right as people exited the venue. I decided to choose one, and within a few minutes I see a man walk up to my car. He asked if I was his Uber, to which I replied with a yes. He gets in the back seat, and right away, the strong smell of marijuana hit me like a brick. However, I knew that he had just come from the festival where smoking was bound to happen, so I wasn't complaining. Throughout the ride, this guy just stared intently at me, as if he were watching my every move. I'll be honest, it kind of made me uncomfortable, and I just wanted to get this ride over with. At one point, he stops staring at me and gets out his phone to call someone. I just tried to focus on driving, and his destination was only 10 minutes away, which was a relief in my book. As I'm driving, I hear him in the back speaking French. Now, my aunt is French, so while I understand a fair bit of French, I don't speak it. So I hear him talking, but I don't pay attention as it's rude to eavesdrop on people's conversations. That was until he said something along the lines of, "This girl I'm riding with." I felt my blood run cold as he said this, but tried to make it seem like I didn't understand him. What he was saying was unnerving. To sum it all up, he was basically saying after I had dropped him off, he was planning on, quote, snatching me up. I knew exactly what that meant, and his stop was only 5 minutes away, so I didn't have much time. I'm a 5'3" petite girl that weighs about 150 pounds. This guy was at least over 6 feet and was muscular, so there was no way I could resist him even if I tried. With very little time to spare, I get out my phone to call my boyfriend. My actual plan was to cause a scene and make up an excuse to leave. As I'm driving, I call him and ask what was up, where I immediately say, "Wait, what? She's bleeding on the floor? Tell her to stay calm, I'm coming." All the while, my boyfriend is completely confused, asking what I was talking about, etc. Thankfully, I used to be in acting school, so I was used to faking a good scene. At that point, I hung up, turned to the man, and said in a worried tone,
"Sir, my grandma just hurt herself. I have to go. I'm just gonna drop you off here."
I floored it down the road before calling my boyfriend back and apologizing, telling him everything. I ended up reporting the man to Uber, but I'm not sure if they investigated it as of yet. Thank you to my boyfriend for picking up, and thank you to my aunt for teaching me French.